for having me both at the Roman Susan space and now at MirrorLab. I appreciate both of the opportunities and this opportunity to talk about the works and the works surrounding it. So my plan for this evening is to talk about several works and then share links so that people can watch them and then return to the discussion since the works are brief. I like to think of my works serially so that you can choose any three and they all talk to each other. So I'll talk a little bit about the siblings of It Makes Me Wanna. Just give me a moment. Okay. So while at the University of Virginia, I was told I wasn't Black by another Black student. Having gone to a mostly white high school and then an immediate connection with other Black students simply because we were Black. Of course, this was not the case. But I like to think that my work is about pulling apart what I understood and understand as my Blackness in relation. Oh, sorry, I have the one up. What I understood and understand as my Blackness in relation to other nuances of Blackness that communities or individuals hold. In 2017, which is when these works were made, I was asking questions about belonging and the ways that I do or don't signify belonging to a particular group or Blackness, or even the signifiers I recognize or fail to recognize in others. So the first film that I'll talk about and then provide the link for is Transit. Transit is a 16mm film that features Black alumni of UVA, spanning a range of graduating classes as they talk about their experiences with application, admittance, and attendance to UVA. The location that they're being filmed at is colloquially called the Black Bus Stop, because for a number of years in the 90s mostly, it was a hugely popular hangout spot for Black students. And during Black Alumni Weekend, which is every other year at the university, alumni get together with the hopes of reconnecting with old friends and meeting new students. The reputation still lives, but the activity at this location has died. And so a lot of the alums who returned to this spot that held all of these really dear memories of their time at the university had changed, and they felt, and I felt it signified like a difference, or even I guess that carried between their generation of Black students at the university and my generation of Black students. And also, of course, hold implications for any after me, immediately after me or sort of far into the future. One of the things that they talk about in this film is this program that the university has called the Transition Program. And it's a program designed to ease incoming undergraduates, usually of lower economic status, into the academic and social atmosphere of the school. But both then and now, the demographic of students elected for the program are largely Black or student athletes. And you know, what I think is so important and so special about this particular film or this particular conversation is the humor in the way that they remembered these maybe not so funny moments of their lives. So I will it's been a couple of minutes. For those who maybe didn't get a chance to finish it, these links are up online and will be available after the talk if you wanted to watch it all the way through or rewatch it. I will share my screen again. So the film that brought everybody here, It Makes Me Wanna was also in and around 2017, and it came from asking, what are some signifiers of a community that I know, and can feel and sort of touch the borders of. Um, I was on, as far as how this came about, I was on a road trip, and some song was playing that I was really into, and I grimaced when the bass dropped, and someone in the car asked if I was okay. Um, and I thought that I thought I recognized what I was talking about and some didn't. And I brought this up to people in my life, my friends, my family, whatever. And there felt like a definite group of people who not only knew what I was talking about, but also had an answer for when I asked them to describe their faces, um, which is also where the title comes from. It makes me wanna, when somebody, when I tell you that this is what I do, invested in this song in this particular way, it's hard to describe it verbally. I mean, of course, you can say, and it's not usually what people choose to do to express their own, commitment or investment or interest in a song. So they usually answer with their face. And I was really interested. I really liked that because it was readable to me in like what they in what they were responding to, but not always readable to everybody. Like I have run into this expression being foreign or like alien to certain age groups, to certain regions, races, etc. And so that's where this idea came about. And as far as I was really interested in, the like detail of their face, the creases, the sweat, the effort, the ecstasy, etc. And I wanted um, not only for this energy to be felt sort of out here with watching it, but also directed toward you. So their eyes are they crisscross. I wanted to make sure that they were vectors so that it sort of became this like 3D experience, not 3D as we traditionally understand it with glasses and everything, but I liked that, um, there was this invisible arrow sort of coming out towards you. And of course, the bigger the projection is when standing in the space and standing in front of it. And so I will also uh, drop a link here, but since um, um, okay, so the link is also there. I don't want to take up too much time with just watching, and also it's been up in this space. And of course, these links are available um, after the talk, and go ahead and talk about the film afterwards that I think would be helpful to watch in full. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Please excuse the back and forth. The final film that feels really connected to I Am is also from 2017, and it's also 16 millimeter. And I think provides a great opening between my older and newer works. I Am is made up of an interview with my mom and is about her relationship with our family, Blackness and religion, and her sort of decisions about those things in her life. As far as the relationship between image and text, as a teenager, she was a cheerleader at an all-white school in a mostly white town, and I was interested, and still am interested, in the cultural conformity that cheerleading demanded. and her self-identification like as a community outlier, which she describes with her opinions on religion and family, etc. in the interview. And while the interview is specific, I felt that her opinion characterized the way that I interacted with other Black students around me at university, at a mostly white university. But also I felt like her story had a reach that was beyond her individual experience. And so I will drop that link. Okay, cool. Sorry about the lag. My internet is not stellar. But yeah, that's all I've got as far as presentation materials.
Thank you, Paige. Ruth Hodgins, who's part of Roman Susan, is going to sort of start a conversation here. And for anyone who has questions for Paige, please just drop them in the chat and we will introduce them into the conversation.
Hi, everyone. And hi, Paige. Congratulations. This is really interesting, and it's lovely to see you and all of the work. Or these three pieces. I wanted to start off by asking if you were able to see either of the installations. I know you didn't make up to Minneapolis. Were you able to see the Roman Susan installation, and or if not, what did you think about seeing Makes Me Wanna installed in these sort of shop front window environments?
I didn't get a chance to see it at Roman Susan, but I did get really excellent documentation to help envision it. And so, yeah, I mean, even with the sort of quick walkthrough earlier, I think what makes me the most excited is the scale, and that the even our current situation, like the presentation doesn't alter the scale. Like I think that kind of impact is still readable like through the glass, and I think a lot of it has to do with like the fact that it's at night and the black and white and the reflection in the window glass. And the fact that there's so many vantage points, especially at Roman Susan, it's got a very interesting architecture. And so I think it gives and also, yeah, with MirrorLab too, it gives the piece an opportunity to, or at least to envision like reflecting on other parts of the room. I think the like atypical form of the space allows, or at least, sort of lets me imagine like, what else could I do to fill it up more? Because it's taking so much space on this wall. It just was like, oh, I could, what if it was on this wall or this wall or that wall? And even that was mentioned earlier by John, like, oh, what if it was all over the place and stuff like that? Like how to, how to like flesh out or, fill this environment. Like, I think, yeah, it's really cool. I mean, of course, I wish I could be there in person, but, it is what it is.
I think that's something that's really amazing about this work is that while it's a silent piece, to me anyway, it has a lot of sound in my head, because I think for two reasons. One, the title actually kind of infers something, and then just the people, the gestures and the movement in the work. It makes me want to dance, and the spaces that you're showing at I can imagine people walking past and having that kind of energy. about them. And so, yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, like in terms of the work as an installation. When you made it, did you think about how an audience might participate with this work? I know you show, at both film festivals and in galleries, and you have that kind of interest. So yeah, I'd be curious how in your intentions with this piece when you made it.
When I made it, I actually thought I'd be submitting it into, or letting it into the festival circuit, and then I sort of threw it up on the wall for and then the reactions from people were totally unexpected. Like I love it. But I didn't think that it would prompt people to dance, because a lot of what happened when I watched people watch it was they would like sort of silently jig in space, which I thought was really cool, because I don't know, I mean, even watching it again in your seat, it just sort of makes you like bop your head. And I think, it feels really in line with what the film is about, to the people who participated, but also, the people who watch it. Like it feels really like a really sort of quiet call and response, which I did not predict, but definitely love. And then of course, the bigger it is, the the stronger the response is, right? So you watch it on your screen and you bop a little bit, but then you throw it up on a wall and people kind of move. And I think is also interesting. And I've thought about, filming the reaction, because even while filming it, because all of the participants were in the room while I was shooting it, as they waited their turn, people would hype each other up. Like they would scream and and yell and goad, but not in like a violent way, but they would amplify the energy in a way that I think would have not been there if it had just been like me and this one other person. So that's something that I have been thinking about for a long time, like not only what was happening in front of it, but also behind it. But it's a lot harder to catch. It's different, I think, to catch it. It's a less self-conscious response, and so I think a little bit more elusive. But
and I think that's why it works in both of these spaces, where they're really illuminating the streets, and it has this kind of vibrancy where people react. It would be very cool to see how people react in the streets as they're going by. I wonder if MirrorLab or Roman Susan could have any input, well, maybe at the end of the discussion, but I'd be interested to hear your observations as the gallerists. So, the title is really interesting, and we talked a little bit yesterday, but could you maybe share a little bit more about how the title came about? I thought that was a really interesting process.
Yeah, so I was totally embarrassed on this road trip when that happened, because the people around me didn't understand why I looked upset with the song that I professed love for, right? And I commiserated with people who understood, and then when I was trying to tell them about what happened, even to just recount the story, like I did my base in order to communicate what I was talking about. And then of course they were like, yeah, I know what you mean, I have this one's mine. And I think some people are more aware of doing it than others, but I thought it was really cool to be able to sort of pull it out like a identification. Oh, this one's mine. This one's mine. Same response to music or beat or feeling or whatever, but they're also different. Like you have some that look more elated and some that look more pained, whatever. And yeah, I mean, when you talk about it, or when you talk about it, it's the beat in relation to your face, and you say, oh, it makes me want to, and even thinking about it, like I start doing it. And so I liked that it was the end to the sentence, which is also why it's not capitalized the way you would capitalize a title, because it felt like a sentence, or I mean the I's capitalized. But it felt like, here is how the statement ends. It's these people's faces. So that's where the title came from. And also, yeah, the punctuation of the title also.
And have you found with audiences who've experienced it, they put what it makes them want to do? Do they share their experience with you? Have you had that?
Usually, yeah. I mean, if they know what I'm talking about, because some people don't know what I'm talking about. But if you know. And people often, do respond with their own faces, but I think it's really great because they're so different, and there's so many that this film could technically go, like the place for it to really stop. But I think, that's also the most interesting part when I ask people what their expression is, what they look like. I have to answer also.
Yeah, it can make you laugh, but it can also make you cringe.
Yeah.
So you talked about this piece as part of a triptych, or maybe not a triptych, but a series of 3 that you made in 2017, Transit and I Am. Maybe could you talk a little bit more about the different elements in the 3 films that you feel are connecting for you, and why you see this as a series of 3 within your larger body of work?
Yes. So I think they all have ways of relating to community, and I like a very specific Black communities at the I think it's, it manifests on different scales and in different ways. And so you have the larger Black community at UVA, which sort of reveals itself in the camaraderie with the alumni, because they didn't know each other at all before talking to me, and they didn't know me either. And it was that sort of instant not care, but instant relation with, oh, you went to this school and you're going to this school, so we have this assumed shared common experience, which often was correct and kind of damning. But I think that that was one kind of community, a larger community that felt simultaneously tangible and intangible. And with It Makes Me Wanna, it felt like it was very tangible because these were people my age. They were my friends. I knew them well. And it was community on an individual level, like mine in this case, that then sort of like Matryoshka doll fits into the larger community talked about in Transit. And then with I Am, the cheerleader is a UVA cheerleader who's on an all-white team, Cameron. And, I felt that connection, a lot of it came from being at the university. And my thoughts about the Black community there, and the white people there, and then the larger picture of Black people and white people in the world. But with I Am, it was my mom's relationship to her Black community, which is this rural Kentucky, old school, because she's obviously older than me, community. And then her sort of search for what she felt was appropriate boundaries for self-identification. And so they all to me, these three feel like excavations of like different kinds of communities on different scales in relation to different scales.
Right. It's interesting because at the beginning of your talk, you talked about how that someone came up to you and said that you're not Black.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that Blackness, Black communities are so much part of your work, but also your mother talked about, and I am, that idea of you know, identifying with being in a white community. And then in transit as well, then it was the guidance teachers who were all white, mm-hmm. Giving the information to the Black students. So that was one of the connections that I made in my head with the three pieces. I don't know if that was something that you share, but I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit more, and also maybe the influence of your mother's experience on your experience. I like dealing with the idea of people saying, you know, you're not Black, or you're working within a white community.
So when that happened, I mean, obviously I know that I'm Black. And she didn't, I know, it didn't come from her comment, or the comment didn't come from like a literal question of my appearance. It was something obviously deeper than that, and, like answerable and unanswerable at the same time. And it's something I push against a lot, like with the question of enough, are you Black enough, etc. And I didn't think it was offensive so much as it was interesting, because she is from Louisiana, and it's just like, oh, the region, environment, whatever, that your identity, your culture, and things like that. And then you go somewhere else and someone says, I have the same as you, where, I'm from California. I would describe my mom as a bohemian. And it was something that was like, so I come from California with a bohemian attitude, and it was into Virginia. And it was something that a lot of people found very strange. And it, I think, has a lot to, came with how my mom thinks of herself, which is evident in I Am, where it's like, well, I'm Jessica first. Mm-hmm. A well-fought or hard-fought luxury to be able to say that, but also not entirely, you're not always given permission to do that. So going to UVA, like I said earlier, I thought that, because I think UVA is 60% white, and I thought getting there, and 6% Black or 7% Black, and getting there, I was like, oh, we'll all be friends because we all, we're all the Black kid in that class. We'll all know how it feels to have, it would happen. I don't know. So when something happens in the world, but it didn't. It didn't happen that way. It was very naive, but I think it was very important, because then I had to define for myself and for others, like whether what I was doing I felt qualified or didn't qualify. And so I think I don't think there's an answer. Like I think that's what's so interesting, is that is continually asking that question, like what is being qualified to define like someone is Black enough, or why didn't she consider me Black enough? Mm-hmm. As I say, dude, I thought it's because I watched or haven't watched X and Y films, and there's all these like expectations of like tacit information that's not always told to you, and it changes depending on your region, your state, your age, whatever. And so I think, I like that it is echoed in I Am. Like it feels relevant with my mom, struggling with that, and then also myself, and then also even actress or not actress, but performer Cameron. Yeah, as I like sort of work to define my borders or others' borders, because it's not always about me. I mean, it could be.
But then, your work is very much about you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
The way so many of your pieces, it's using your personal experience and your family's experience to then talk about larger issues, larger ideas of community, and like you've talked in your artist statement about autoethnography.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you could talk a little bit more about how that's coming through in your work, and the importance of, well, a couple of things, like the importance of now how using your family and people close to you to make your work and the influence of them on your work, but also, I guess, to follow up with that question, like where you see yourself going with your work as you're making more stuff and broadening your ideas, like how would you expand your community if you wouldn't mind sharing those ideas?
Yes. So as far as like my relationship to ethnography or autoethnography, and then how that ties into my interest in my like family and family members, I like helpful, or I guess guiding, when explaining my work, because I don't want it to be qualified as documentary. And I've had that brought up, and I think that feels inappropriate, because I think often, not always, but often when someone defines something as a documentary, there's like an expectation to learn something, and I don't think that's my responsibility. And so I try to make work that explores subject matter, and it's for people who already know. Like I was once told that my work operates within the nod, and I was like, yes, I love that. Because if you know what the nod is, don't worry about it. And I think that kind of nod is in my work, and I like that. Like if you understand it, great. If not, you can meet the work where you meet the work, and it's different levels for everybody. So like with my mom's film, for example, you can maybe understand alienation, person who hasn't experienced alienation in some way, but she's talking about a very specific kind of alienation with a very specific generation, et cetera, and all these like specifications that make hers unique, that then that uniqueness sort of only applies to a particular group that also shares that uniqueness. And then of course it's one thing to understand that, and it's another to experience it, like the nod. And so I'm just going to keep saying that. So I think as far as ethnography, I mean, I just think people, which is why I love filming people, like people are already interesting. And I think my family is interesting. They have a lot to say. And I think it's very complicated. They have complicated relationships with me, with themselves, with the world. I mean, who doesn't? But I think, and it happens a lot with me filming people, like I think it has to do with maybe a desire, like integrity. Like I like to know my subjects. I feel very strange filming things or people I don't understand. Like I feel, I don't want to say comfortable, because it's not always comfortable, but I do think to make films about things I am comfortable being uncomfortable in, and that's often my family, or people my age, whatever. But I think, yeah, so that's where my interest in ethnography comes from. Like I already know, the rules of the game, the questions to ask, the it's really important, because then that's how you get people to open and say these really deep things. I mean, not always, but that's where my relationship with, I think, ethnography is, and autoethnography comes from. And also, yeah, like the uniqueness of my family isn't, so unique. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? Like, they're not the only Black family in Kentucky. They're not the only who experienced, the stresses and strains of the Great Migration and all this other stuff, as, being a part of the larger, like, Black American community.
And so these works are 2017, so it's a little while ago, and you graduated from your MFA. Since then, you've been at both UVA and UIC. So maybe could you talk a little bit about how your works have changed, like your works today, and ideas from these films or subjects in these films that have carried on, and things that you've let go of in your current practice. And I will quickly say that on Paige's website, most of her films are available, or a lot of them are available, at least to see stills, but I think a number of them are available in full as well. So check them out for sure. But yes, back to my question. Yeah, like, how can you talk about your practice today, and how and the kind of the shift that you've created in your work, and how things have evolved?
Yes. So yeah, a lot of the works made at UVA, so like 2017, 2018, early parts of 2018. I had a community to help me make them, right? So like community in gatherings that were available to me, like the alumni weekend, classes, professors that had interests in African American studies, etc., and friend groups, Black theater groups, whatever. And so I, by the time I left, had a really tight consistent group of people who would be willing to be in my stuff or like help me film. And then that changed when I moved here, and had to reevaluate what was available to me. So that also has a lot to do with my sort of shift in interest, well, not interest, but shift in focus to like family history, familial relationships, and also, yeah, a detachment, or not detachment, but a willingness to part from 16 millimeter. Like I started making found footage films or installations, works, whatever, and became and still am interested in mixing the two, both for textural differences, content, whatever. And so that has, at least materially, how my work has shifted between then and now. Conceptually, or I guess, conceptually, I'm vacillating between family works and sort of works, larger communal works. So, last fall I had one about my sister and my mom and my mom's dreams, and then her having us, and then I had one about the serendipity of my mom meeting my dad, and all of that stuff. But then also earlier this spring, I had a film that was about dance, actually, call and response in church, and then call and response in dance. Like how do you answer the call? Like, I think 50 Cent says something like that in a song, but they're, because I move between that, right? Like having this individual, but then also communal experiences, with the news and my friends and my family and whatever, however you collect community experience. So I switch. I think right now it just depends on what's happening, what I can or can't do. So like most recently, I finished that took place in Berlin, which is a Black community that I have no connection to. And so I was trying to understand that gap, that difference between the Afro-German and African-American experience, or not understand it, because I don't know if it's even really there for me to understand specifically, but to be witness to it. And then, the next film I want to work on, my dad was in 8 years at San Quentin in California, and he wrote my mom hundreds of letters. And they split, 20 whatever years ago, but she kept them all. And so I think that's like really, and she's sending them to me. And I think there's this really interesting and like, I don't know, human attachment to these mementos. Gonna start, making something about.
How does your mum feel about her life being filmed like this?
She loves it. She loves it. She watches the film. She gives me critique. She says, I don't like the title of this, or I think you should have color here.
Wow.
She's and I think that surprises people. But she loves talking about herself. And my whole family loves doing that, like be comfortable, maybe not so much in front of the camera, but definitely behind it, or voice or whatever. Like my grandmother was in one this spring, my sister last fall. Everyone likes to talk or be listened to, and so my mom's all about it. She's all about it.
Amazing. You'll have to share this discussion with her. She can critique.
Oh, she's looking for it. She's looking for it. Guaranteed.
Well, I feel I see there's a question in the chat from Casey. But if anyone else has questions that they want to pose, and Nathan, did you want to jump in and mediate the Q&A, or do you want me to just keep going?
Oh, sure. Well, I could go ahead and read the question from Casey. It's basically, Casey says, hi, Paige, could you discuss the storefront projection of the film and how it connects to the visibility and the on-display characteristics of dancing, among others? Dancing allows you to lose or forget yourself in the act, but also provides a way for one to see themselves from others' eyes. I'm curious how that relates to projecting film literally in the public. There's also the visibility of coded or symbolic gestures, i.e. your joyous grimace, that is only truly seen by your peers who share your perspective.
I think there is a expectation, right? When you go dancing, in clubs specifically, of being seen, right? Like people, obviously this wasn't filmed in a club, but like, peacock, you put on, good clothes, heels, maybe, whatever floats your boat, but it's to appear a certain way, whatever it is. Like thinking about the call and response in dancing, like there's an expectation that in certain dance environments that you aren't dancing alone. And so I think that kind of, to put it mildly, and I think that kind of expectation of that kind of visibility shows up here, because it's, they're obviously aware of the camera, and the other people watching, they knew that everyone else would be there to watch, and it changes the experience, because the grimace isn't, just for yourself. it happens involuntarily, I think, but also, you know, it's a show of effort for others also, because, you know, people are looking at you. Like, I think, you know, you can dance in a way that invites. And I think the storefront, you know, allows, it's a different kind of looking because it's not in a dance environment initially, but I think it creates one, right? Like you then start to move, and then you look to see if anyone else is moving. I think it alters the space, and it gives, you know, people permission to participate. And so, I mean, I think how it connects to the visibility.
Okay.
I think it offers the opportunity to transform the space. There's coders involved gestures. It's only seen through the way it appears for a second. Yes, sorry, I'm reading the second half. I mean, I think it's totally coded. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, you can meet the work where you can meet the work. I mean, I make it for Black people, and, you know, people who consider themselves Black. That means to them, but I, you know, expect. I mean, everyone can enjoy it. You don't have to be Black to watch it, but you know, you meet the work where you meet the work. You can understand dance. Or maybe you don't, you know, understand this kind of dance. Like, I think there are a lot of different ways to grab at it, and that's fine. But it is coded, you know, and I think you can recognize the code, you can read the code, you can respond with code.
Cool. I actually have a question in relation to basically your filmmaking process and how you came about your aesthetic and like how that's changing and evolving. Because I feel like with the lighting and the way everything is shot, there's like this very timeless quality. And I feel like you're making a lot of really strong decisions that kind of help. I mean, like, I feel like your aesthetic is a really strong narrative that combines all of these conceptual choices. And I'm just wondering, like, where your inspiration came from for that and how you developed your relationship with the materials and with your technology, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I was once told this, that you know, Black and white film can hide time or stamp time, and I think that depending on the film, it's not, you know, one size fits all. But what it makes me want it felt like that would be more appropriate because it would hide it would. But also, what felt the most important for me in shooting it was like the texture of their skin, the light on their sweat, the sheen in their hair, etc. And so light felt really important there, and I felt that Black and white would be the best way to that, which is also why there's, I mean, one of the reasons, not the only reason, why there's no sound, because that also dates it in a particular way that I think would be unproductive. As far as like the materiality of the film, I like the economy of shooting with 16 millimeter, so you only get, you know, 2 minutes and 30 seconds per roll of film. And I you know, was learning filmmaking on it, but also I think that it made me think about how to not compress, but how to, in the fewest formal moves possible, but also the most, like, also powerfully, like, not make a point, but like tell a story or witness this event or whatever. And so I like that still, you know, thinking about that, like, formal tightness, like, I only have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to tell my mom's whole life story, you know. How do I make this work? Or even with transit, like, I think that the text and the economy of shooting really work together because of the joke. I think it's so beautiful because it sets up this, like, hook, line, and sinker for this joke at the end. And it's punchy, right? Like, you know, they're all cut differently. But I think that, yeah, that's where, at least in 2017, like, my attachment to 16 millimeter lead and, like, the thinking of or conceptualizing of each of these works. Does that answer your question?
So Paige, I'd be curious, so you graduated your MFA this year.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting time for you, I imagine, lots of change. What would you like, do you have any ambitions for your films, like anything that you're wanting to achieve in the next few years? Do you want to make a feature? That's like the question every filmmaker's asked. Yeah, like what are you hoping to do?
I honestly, and I know I would like to make a feature. Like, I think the longest thing I've made is 8 minutes. And it was so hard, but I liked it. I liked that the it was like a different level of detail of a larger picture that I had to, you know, wrestle with. I want to find, you know, some looseness in editing. Like, I'm very, like, you know, because these were 3 years ago, almost 4. Like, I'm very aware of the kind of tightness they have, and I think that was necessary for the content and the you know, the interviews and the visuals, whatever. But I want to move slower. I want content that necessitates longer work. You know, I think, you know, even with my dad's letters, because there's so many, and because he was there for 8 years, like, I don't think a 3-minute film would do that justice. And, like, you know, like, I think ending how I think time a story should take, or how much time content or whatever should take, because I love long takes, but I think, and I use them, but I think you know, more long takes would be the next step. Bigger content. I'd eventually, as I don't know when this would ever happen, but I want to make more work about expectations of Black religious practice. I have my best friend is a Hebrew Israelite, which is not Jewish, but has a contentious relationship with the U.S. and is on a, like, government watch list because of some things that happened in the 80s and the 90s. And I want to understand, you know, what necessitated, like, the birth of a new or different religion in the 70s, in the 60s, 70s. It's not that old. And then there was a large group of Black Americans who left the US and went to Dimona, Israel, which is about, I think, 2 hours out from Tel Aviv, I think. So I'd like to go there and, like, talk to this community of people who've been there for only, like, one generation, ago and like understand like that decision. I mean, it's more than just a decision, but you know, I think that's like that would be a really big, I feel like would be a really big career step, but I don't know when that or how that could happen, especially the way the world's looking now. But you know, those are, I think, long-term goals filmically.
Gosh, you've got a busy time ahead. I can't wait to see what you do next. And it's been really wonderful hearing more about your practice and the sort of behind the scenes of your works, and just hearing you speak. And so thank you so much for sharing your works with both Rome and Susan and MirrorLab, and sharing your thoughts, your dreams, your ambitions with all of us here today. So I'll pass it back over to Kristen and Nathan and John. But yeah, thanks. It was really nice to see you again.
It was great seeing you too. Thank you for the amazing questions.
Yeah, thank you both. It was really great. And thank everyone who is joining us. If you're in Minneapolis, go by 3400 Cedar Avenue. If you're anywhere else, go to Paige's website and watch of the other films, including It Makes Me Wanna. If you can like project it out of your computer much larger, you can try that too. That's sort of what it's like in the storefronts. Yeah.
Paige, do you have any questions for anybody here?
No, I don't. I think this has been really great.
Great. Well, yeah, we really appreciate you know, being able to do this and hear your presentation about the work. I learned a lot. And John, do you have anything else to add? It's great to do this virtually, because it's, you know, a long drive, but
I'm extremely grateful to have this piece in our space right now, and it's amazing to be in this dialogue with you all, and it's just all very lovely. Thank you so much. This piece is so powerful, and it's commanding a lot of attention here in the Twin Cities right now, and it's great. So thank you.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for coming.